The Human Relations and Organizational Behavior Leadership Plan, Chapter 3, is where our discussion starts today. So when we look at the leadership plan, it has some components that and some structure that's extremely important. It has an executive summary, a company or business unit description, a SWOT and an analysis strategy, leadership programs, which are a key component that differentiates it from other types of business planning, the financials, an implementation segment, as well as an assessment segment. So, this plan, this HR&OB leadership plan, is really a roadmap to help motivate and inspire teamwork and build better group dynamics. And that's one of the key elements that separates it from just regular business, marketing, or even diversity planning. It's a bridge between the ideals that one has about leadership and the reality of executing those, developing a work in progress, because this is never a final product. Look more at it as a living working document, presenting the approach used to exploit the opportunities and improve the opportunities for success for the organization that you build the leadership plan for. So when we look at this plan and these components, I've in red here I have the leadership program put down. This is the how or the execution that you're going to do, and so we're going to spend a fair amount of time trying to make sure we understand how to make those leadership programs different. The structure itself is very similar to other types of business planning, but we're just using that so that there's familiarity and the understanding that the leadership plan does not stand alone. It is normally a function, or should be a function, of strategy at the very least, and at the very best, a function of business plans and planning. So, how do we start this HR&OB plan? Well, in order to do that, we've got to look at it from a standpoint of describing the operation that we work within. Who's the audience? What is our strategy? Who is the competition, and where are our finances coming from? And so there's some fundamental core elements here that we pull together to help us start building these plan components, which really gets us to understand the significance around the executive summary. It is nothing more than exactly what it says. It is a summarization that's written at the end of your plan, your HR&OB plan, and then placed at the beginning. It involves understanding, and here's again another separation or difference from regular or other business types of planning. It involves leadership as a concept, the unit and mission, the unit description, leadership and strategy, your leadership programs that we talked about, the finances, and then implementation. So it has some slight variations in it because again you're coming at this from an HR and OB perspective, not just a business perspective. So the unit that you're operating within should have some level of a vision. Some key contributors and assets should be financed. You're looking to be able to describe this operation in your leadership plan so everyone kind of understands who you are, and then ultimately, after the description, what you're going to do. And that's where the leadership SWOT comes into play, which is slightly different from the other SWOTs that we work in. Because you have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but your analyzation of them is from a leadership standpoint. So where are you strong in leadership? Where are you weak? Where are your opportunities? Where are your threats? And you build that analysis into your HR and OB plan. As a result, that analysis really helps you have a much more solid leadership overview overall about how you might be able to progress your unit or your organization. There's some changes necessary in leadership at times. How do you transition and make those changes happen is extremely important when you're starting to develop your leadership strategy, because it should be focused from a competitive standpoint, a technological standpoint, an employee perspective, as well as a marketing perspective. It should have a strategy focus at all times. And then, of course, last but not least, it is operationally based because operations are tied to leadership quite closely. So, we talked a couple of times about the leadership program description and why that's important. You're going to have to fund your leadership programs, and they have to be budgeted and solution based in order to keep you on track in the leadership plan and its development. They have to have a certain component of diversity, because you're going to have a number of people that are going to be engaging in the process. And not only do they need to be team oriented, but the expertise needs to be a key driver in that. And then last but not least, your leadership programs need to be sustainable. So how do you include everyone, make it transparent and innovative, and at the same time, start to build the impetus for a learning organization? Now, these three components are extremely important in the leadership program description. They do not dictate exactly what the programs will look like, but they become part of the fabric that we use in order to build the programs. So you want to make sure that you've included these. And of course, there could be many others that you include as well. But these three, we think, give a good foundation for the leadership programs and how to describe them. Finances we talked about are extremely important. This is just a pro forma of 9 months that kind of gives you an overview of revenues, expenses, and then the difference between those two are net profit, and how you should be able to manage the programs that you pull together. So when we look at leadership and implementation, it's the actionable steps that we're going to take in our leadership programs that's going to be extremely important for us. Are they time sensitive? Do they have enough specificity? Who are the participants, and what are the functional groups and areas that we're going to draw upon in order to make sure that we can execute? And when we look at these goals and objectives, are they short term or are they long term? And how does that play into our leadership plan sustainability and making sure that priorities are measured and taken care of? And last but not least, what are the policies that really allow our employees to be empowered in building these guidelines and procedures within and outside our organization? And then last but not least, we talk about assessment. Assessment is nothing more than coming back, taking a look at not only your leadership programs, but your HR&OB overall leadership plan, and saying to yourself, was I on the right track? Was I aligned properly? Was it measurable? How did I integrate? Did I do it with a quality perspective? And if not, where do I need to recalibrate, or in this case, make changes in order to make sure that I am effective moving forward? So, in summary, uh, these are some definitions that might be beneficial to you, looking at discovery, looking at how to define things from a service standpoint, taking a look at design and why that's important, as well as implementation. I think has some significance, and then of course, last but not least, delivery, how we get things done. These, I think, definitions or summarizations can be helpful for you. And then here's a couple more definitions that I think might be helpful. Executive summary and what we're looking at there. Strategy, why that's significant in our HR&OB leadership plan. Financials, and the ability to be able to sustain or support, in this case, fund and budget the monies necessary to get our HR&OB plan on the right track. So what did we learn today? Well, we understand some of the key elements that support the HR&OB plan. And this structure that we've given you, again, it's optional, can be extremely helpful. Now, you can go on the internet and research other ways to build structures for leadership plans, but we like to use this one, again, because it aligns nicely with regular business planning. Not a lot of organizations do leadership planning. They probably should to some degree, but we've given you a good framework for this HR&OB leadership plan as to how to pull that together. Here is your thought for the day. Doing nothing is the most tiresome job in the world because you cannot quit nor rest.